much need, although I can't say I'm surprised to hear that there's so much need. And I didn't hear everyone's name from the fan and all, but even if I did, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't remember them all. That's okay, but I'm just thinking of this couple here. I'm wondering, do you travel with a security team or like that? Because I'm thinking you might be ambushed.
That's okay. Well, we need members also, so that's how we fund it. So that's another reason why we're here.
Well, good. Well, I love that there's actually, folks that want to give as well, and those that need. I really feel like I love being with groups like this because it's just, to me, you can't have bad energy in a room like this, and I really always think, this is my people, and it's great energy. I have to laugh because my son's girlfriend last night said to me that she was asking where I was coming today, and I said, well, I'm speaking at the nonprofit council with the Culpeper Chamber. She said, oh my gosh, that sounds like something out of Harry Potter. I said, well, those nonprofit people, they have a special magic. Anyway, so it wasn't that far off. But anyway, I'm Lynn Lauritzen. I'm with the Path Foundation. Prior to being hired by the Path Foundation in 2016, I spent 10 years as Director of Volunteer Services for Volunteer Health. And that was my first kind of entry into the world of, nonprofits. In fact, I didn't even know what a 501c3 was at that time. In fact, I used to call it a 501(c)(3) because I didn't know. So I'm shameless. So anyway, I remember when I first came and was interviewing for the position, I thought, because I was a manager I have an aviation career, commercial aviation, and for years, and I was in management, I was on the ground, and I just remember interviewing for the position, and them telling me that I'd be managing volunteers, and I thought, people that want to, people that want to do what they're doing, that is like a dream. I didn't even realize there was such a job that you could manage volunteers. And so I was just crossing my fingers and hoping that somebody with no experience in that sector they would hire. And they did. And so now here we are almost 20 years later. And it's just I'm inspired daily. And today, I know a lot of you want to learn a lot. I know that's why you're here. We have less than an hour. So you may not walk out knowing everything you need to know today, but what you are going to find out is the wealth of resources that are available to you that you can access at any time for free. And so because we have this volunteer management program coming up, this is going to be kind of a teaser. It's going to let you know what we're going to be covering in each of those modules, because my hope is by doing that, you can determine which one is best suited for you. Because I see we're in all different kind of stages. Some of you are brand new in your position. Some of you already have volunteers and want to know how to manage the ones you have. Some want to know how to recruit them. So you're all at all different stages. And I know it's very cliche to say, yes, I'm here to teach you. But at the same time, if there's one thing I know Melissa and I've learned every day is that you learn most when you talk amongst each other, and when you learn from each other, and when you share the different stages that you're at. So I really don't want to lose sight of the fact that you're all sitting here in the same room, and you could learn from each other. So where I may be going over what it is, touching on some of these things you're going to learn, I really, I'm going to be throwing a lot back on you too, and trying to pull from you so that you can then share, and then, maybe you've passed that stage, but you can speak to it, so somebody who needs to learn about it can learn from you. Because I'm a much better conversationalist than I am a lecturer. So please feel free. This is very informal. Please feel free to kind of jump in. Here's a cord. To jump in and share, because I promise you that is where the learning is going to happen. So yes, so this is actually we refer to it now as a volunteer engagement training. We don't really call it, in the industry, because it's up to me to keep up with the industry terms. We don't really call it. I know, right? Now my arrow's not working. To move my. starting out on the same page. So volunteer engagement, a strategy that builds organizational capacity. That was another term I didn't know anything about when I came into this sector was capacity. What is capacity? Need to be bigger? I know. So organizational capacity through employee and volunteer collaboration and the development of high-impact, meaningful volunteer opportunities that create greater influence and outcome for the organization. And I mean, that is a really good definition, and it's the perfect world definition. But it definitely is not always gonna feel like your experience. I mean, how many, well, I guess would anyone raise their hand and say that they're accomplishing this right now through their volunteer program? Okay, I'm in the right place, aren't I? Okay. So, can anyone just throw back at me what you feel your biggest challenge is in actually reaching that definition in your organization, actually having that, having your volunteer program be exactly what that defines it should be? Biggest challenge. Time management. What do you explain that?
In terms of trying to get from the healthcare side, trying to get our employees, our nurses, our clinical staff to understand that it's just important to be involved in the community, so their neighbors, their friends, people coming into the community see them and are able to want to come out to the hospital and not feel intimidated. Because a lot of people are intimidated by healthcare as it is. So they see their time better served being inside the walls, not outside the walls and in the community.
Very, very good, yeah. And coming from healthcare environment and, being in the volunteer realm of healthcare, I can absolutely relate to what you're saying. Anyone else want to name what their biggest challenge is? Say it again? Negative stigma. You mean with volunteers? You mean getting volunteers?
Trying to get my type of volunteer.
Okay. So there's judgment.
This in a community.
Okay. So that's
I
unique.
guess that would come with education.
That's kind of unique, isn't it? I mean, because does anybody else have that problem?
Not that problem, but I think it's a whole generational thing where the volunteers are getting older and the newer generation doesn't want to volunteer as much for president.
We don't even want to work.
So I'll piggyback off of that. I partner with Rusty at Culpeper Food Closet, and for us, we are thrilled to have our seniors who are volunteers, but as our workload ramps up, we are experiencing, people who get to the point where they can't continue because the pace is so rapid in the need, and so the aging piece of it is definitely.
Aging has always been a volunteer concern, and that's why it's so important to have some sort of succession and the ability to tap into the different age groups. Is somebody saying something over here? Yes.
I was just going to agree in terms of volunteer burnout. Your volunteers may want to give, but then the type of work we do also can contribute to compassion fatigue.
Absolutely.
So those are a couple other issues for us to be mindful of as we're working with our volunteers.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on a lot of that, and I'm glad you all brought that up because it's definitely highlights of what we'll go over in these modules. I want to show you what it is today, what we're going to be doing in these 6 different modules over the next 6 months, well actually 7 because we skipped December. But the first class we have, the first workshop, is establishing the framework. Then we're planning for volunteer engagement, opportunities and outreach, intake and onboarding, supervision support, and evaluation. So that's what we focus on, and what I'd like to do is touch on each of these, go over some highlights, discuss it amongst ourselves a little bit, which we will touch on some of these specific things you brought up, and use our time that way. And then when we're finished, I want to make sure you're leaving today with tools that you can use, tools that are available to you, and make sure that when you leave here today, you have a game plan on how you're gonna meet these goals that you had when you first came in and told me about them. So we're talking about Module 1. Now, the thing to note about the first 2, and actually, I'm really glad to have the opportunity to do this because we did even find, we've done this 2 other times. 2 other times we've done this, these modules, and they've changed over time. But it is really important that you are a good fit for the particular workshop that you're going to. You don't wanna go to one that's a little too far advanced where you are, you don't wanna go to one that, oh, I already know that, I've been doing that for a while, and so it's important to kind of pay attention and see what it is that we're going over so that you can attend the ones that are gonna be the best match for you. So the first two are actually very kind of overarching, you know, they're more macro level. So the objectives of the first module are to describe volunteerism and its role in civic life today. And that will kind of tap into some of the things that you've talked about. I think that you had mentioned about like burnout and then you know, aging out and the types of volunteers that you're getting. Apply a volunteer-centered framework to volunteer engagement, identify elements of volunteer engagement, and explore barriers to social motivators for volunteer engagement. Now, interestingly, you'll hear me talk a lot about the right fit and how important the right fit is for volunteers. Now, that doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design, and there's many stages of volunteering where you, as someone who's managing or organizing, can ensure that fit is achieved. But you know, it's work. It is work, and I mean, I think everyone understands by now, if you're here, that, you know, volunteers, I mean, they're not free, even though they're free, right? So there's a lot of investment that needs to be made. And so you do have to have processes in place that help you with these goals. Like, so one thing we talk about in getting the right fit and, you know, elements of social motivators for volunteer engagement, we talk about people that are motivated by achievement, people that are motivated by affiliation or influence. Those are three different types of people that are going to be attracted to different types of volunteering. So how many of you are familiar with the platform that I manage called letsvolunteer.org and use it? Or maybe, I mean, familiar with it, you don't necessarily use it. Well, good. If you don't know about it, you're going to before you leave today. And hopefully, if you are not registered on that site and using that site, because that is one free tool, you will be after today, because we have just about 7,000 users on that site. So there's quite an audience of givers that, you know, want to know what you need.
What was that again?
Letsvolunteer.org. So in this module, we're going to talk about basically, you know, overall volunteer engagement and creating a volunteer experience. So we're talking about the experience from the moment that volunteer sees you on social media, learns about your organization, either picks up the phone or sends an email, or however way they choose to connect with you, to them walking through your door. And when they actually get there, what is their experience like? So we talk a lot about creating a volunteer experience, and every single decision you make about your volunteer program, you have to be thinking about what the volunteer experience is, okay? So that's kind of how we get started, you know, getting the foundation, getting the fundamentals down. And I do want to go over a couple stats, because we are talking about in that module about kind of the landscape of volunteering. And I know, how many of you worked with volunteers before COVID and now after COVID? So I'm certain you're feeling a change, right? So tell me a little bit about the changes you felt pre-COVID and now post-COVID in your volunteer engagement. Anyone want to offer? Because I mean, if you won't, I will. Anyone?
The numbers are down.
The numbers are down. Yeah, and actually, this says the numbers are down. You got 70, they do this every 2 years, so it was 19, 21, and then they will have done it last year, but we don't have numbers from last year yet. 77.3 million versus 60.7 million. Americans volunteered, 6.9 billion versus 4.1 billion hours, and then 167 billion estimated value dollars versus 122.9. So yes, they're down. And one thing that that has also been noticed or has been kind of discerned is formal volunteering versus informal volunteering. Now, we all knew that both existed, but in terms of giving the informal volunteering an actual kind of category and really acknowledging it, that was really not done before, or at least measured. And so it's no surprise, of course, that informal volunteering went up. And by informal, does everyone know what I mean by informal volunteering?
No.
It's helping your neighbor, it's cooking, it's, cooking meals for the sick neighbor, or, taking the garbage up for your aging neighbors. That's what it is, and they're actually measuring it now. And they really started having to measure it because during COVID, that's where, formal volunteering went down and informal volunteering went up, okay? So if we look at Virginia, in 2021, there were more than 1.8 billion residents volunteering through an organization, contributing $4 billion in economic value. Now, I'm just curious, just to make it easy, so tell me if you think it's above 50% or below when I give you these statistics. So, above 50 or below, residents formally volunteer through organizations of that number. More than 50 or below? Below, yes, 27.2. How many residents talked or spent time with friends or family? Above or below? Way above, 96.7, post-COVID, and during COVID. How many residents informally helped others by exchanging favors with their neighbors? It was actually just at 50. How many residents had conversations or how many residents belong to an organization? Below, 28. And then residents, this is interesting, donated $25 or more to charity. Above, but just barely, 54. So the rate of formal volunteering through organizations dropped by 7 percentage points from 30% in 2019 to 23.2 during the pandemic. So, that's not a surprise. We all knew that was happening, but it also changed, just like everybody else, it changed how you had to kind of manage and attract and, model build your volunteer program, okay? So Module 2 is planning for volunteer engagement. And the objectives in that are describing the many steps of volunteer engagement. Now, typically what you'll learn is there are 5, and they are very similar to the 5 bubbles that we saw earlier. But let me ask you, if you were to break it down and really drill down into how many steps there are in engaging volunteers, because actually one of the exercises in the workshop is I put all of them down in front of you, and the group puts them in order. How many would you think there are? Just take a guess. These are real detailed touch points in volunteer engagement.
20. A dozen.
Who said 20? 20, yeah, it's 24. So there's 24. Now, I know that may seem overwhelming, but it just goes to show you these are the things that you need to actually focus on. What we basically need to do is figure out, what our needs are, and then who are we going to attract to those needs. So we talk about learning how to conduct a volunteer engagement assessment. Now that sounds pretty, a volunteer engagement assessment. So what does that mean to you, anybody?
That's to see if the volunteers were engaged.
Say again?
Just an assessment to see if the volunteers were engaged and enjoyed their experience. Like that.
Well, it's actually something you do before you even bring the volunteers in. Because what you're trying to find out, this is something you actually do in your organization. Because what you're trying to find out is, what do you need? What are we doing? What can we give up on what we're doing? What is a priority? What is it that we can let go of, and what is it we can't let go of? And what is it we need to focus more on? And to be able to do that, we have to bring some people in to help us because we're doing everything. So, and I know, again, some of you are, how many of you are like a staff of 1? Yeah, or 2, right? So you may be talking about doing this assessment with your board, or you may just be, go home and have a talk with yourself. but the bottom line is you need to really start to assess what it is, because it's really no different, I think Jeff, you said time management, right? Well, it's really, it's along those lines, because you do have to really take a look at what you're doing. And you really have to take a look at what it is you need help doing. And how are you gonna bring people in to do that? So we also talk about considering risk when deciding how to engage volunteers. Now, I don't know how many times over the years when I've talked with people that, you know, they say, well, I can't have volunteers. Now, I think SAFE is a good example. I mean, I'd love to hear what you have to say because,
So I think that a big barrier to us getting volunteers is the 40-hour training that is required. Even though the training is really, really fun, and we use food, and it really is, I did the training, I started as a volunteer, and I loved that experience. I made friends, I learned so much, but it's a daunting thing to hear, oh, you can't volunteer until you do this 40 hours of training. It's like, how am I gonna fit that into my schedule? And, you know, it's Saturdays, and it's 4 Saturdays, but it's a good time. It really is. It's a really interactive training. And I need to, like, help people understand that. Like, it sounds bad, it sounds boring, it sounds like, oh, I don't wanna do that, but it's actually the best part of volunteering, is safe training activity.
yeah, I mean, it's good that you acknowledge and recognize that you believe it could sound bad. But my first recommendation to anybody is always believe in what you're doing, believe in yourself, and believe in the investment. It's because you know what? It can be looked upon as a time sucker or a waste of time, but in reality, and you know this, and you can make sure they know this, and chances are they do know this, it's an investment.
It is.
It's an investment that you're making in them.
I mean, because you just learn so much,
Mhm.
and then, you know, you can volunteer in pretty much any capacity that we would ever need, once you've completed training.
Well, and that's how you sell it. I mean, you see, everything you just said is all part of the, you know, volunteer experience and attracting the right fit. So, you know, who she would be looking for as a volunteer for SAFE is completely different than maybe, who was it, food bank?
Ruritan Club.
Oh, Ruritan Club,
Civic
who's
Club.
food bank? Yeah, okay, yeah, who you'd look for in a food bank volunteer. Now, I'm right there with you because for 10 years I was a volunteer for a hospital. And you think 40 hours, well, I mean, that was, what, how many Saturdays?
4 Saturdays.
Yeah, 4 Saturdays. Well, we had a 3-day orientation, 3-day, consecutive 3-day orientation. And I remember when I first started at the hospital, I wanted to piggyback the volunteers onto the hospital orientation. And it was rejected. It was pushed back significantly because the thought was, there's no way you were gonna get people to devote that much time to orientation. And I said, well, I disagree because I think, first of all, you know, you're investing in them, you're training them. Anybody that has a person, a patient, a family member in the hospital wants to know that the volunteers and everybody there are well trained, right? So this is how I started marketing, and this is how I started, you know, and this is how I started attracting the right people. Now, one, you might say, well, Lynn, okay, yeah, you're attracting the right people, but, you know, you need people who can give up 3 days, and that's not anybody with a full-time job. So even, you know, so you're kind of pushing aside a whole group of people that you could use. Well, no, I had a backup. I had a backup plan, and it was one that, because you want to take down barriers, you always want to take down barriers if you take down barriers to volunteering. So I had, you know, first of all, I didn't have them sitting through times of the orientation that were relevant only to clinicians, so I got with HR, and fortunately they allowed me to be a part of the design of the orientation. And so the last half day, my volunteers could go home and then they went over all the clinician stuff. So remember, it's good to really be honest about what it is you're doing because that's how you're gonna attract the right people to volunteer. So you wanna be careful not to try to mold what you're doing to appeal to the masses. Sometimes you really want to make sure people know what you're doing so that you attract the right people. And know that there's your people are out there. You know, you just have to do the right thing to get them. So, considering risk, the reason I mentioned SAFE is because I have a lot of organizations I've worked with over the years that say, well, you know, I can't use volunteers. And it's because, you know, even in a hospital environment, you know, there's the HIPAA, there's confidentiality. There are documents and processes in a volunteer program that you can use to protect yourself, to protect the clients you serve, that can allow volunteers to safely do whatever work. And I challenge you, if you have any question in your mind, well, I can't use volunteers for that, come talk to me, because I'm sure we can find a way. Because there's a lot of skilled people out there that wanna share their skills. And, you know, just because someone isn't getting paid for what they're doing doesn't mean they can't have a lot of responsibility. And then finally, identify resources and support needed to effectively engage volunteers. So, you know, we'll also talk about that later because, you know, a lot of you feel you're lacking in resources, right? And so it's our job here to help you find them and to help you create processes where they're available to you. Yeah.
Something that I found already is kind of a barrier is we're on the path and it's wonderful and we'll have some email, but they maybe want to do 10 hours, but then you have to put maybe so much investment with somebody that might only be interested in doing 10 hours of volunteering, like
Or like a senior project or something.
right.
Like we
So
have a
how would
girl-
you
yeah.
navigate volunteers that maybe want to volunteer on a pretty limited basis if there is all this investment into the volunteers?
So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So you're saying somebody that comes to you that only can give 10 hours.
Right. They just have. I've just happened to
Yeah, we
have
have a girl right now who's reached out about a senior project and she needs about 10 hours. And we're trying to figure out, you know, and I understand, like, you know, what we do is a good experience, it would be a great project for her. We're trying to figure out how to make sure that, you know, we train her enough for, you know, because of what we do and
Yeah.
confidentiality and all this stuff, we have to let them know. So yeah, we wanna be able to engage those types of volunteers, like,
You don't want to do all of the upfront investment in a volunteer if you know they're going to be the should they have like a very short orientation. You're
yeah,
not doing orientation.
we're gonna, I think we're trying out like a two-tier volunteer
Right.
training.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you know someone for a long time.
In development.
Yeah.
Well, if I just let you two.
We'll take some of this, we'll figure it out.
And I love what you're saying. I love, I mean, I could just sit down because what you're saying is exactly how you should be looking at this. First of all, don't forget something. You are a business. You are a business. And so just because these people want to help you and you're not paying them, does not mean that you still don't operate like a business. And so if you have somebody who wants to only give you 10 hours, and I mean, let's go with SAFE, or let's just go with any organization that has to invest a lot of time in training, or chooses to invest a lot of time in training. There's a balance there. I mean, you don't always want to just meet the bare minimum, but you want to be prudent, you want to be responsible, you want to be safe. So if you have a position, you're very wise to start thinking about positions in your organization and knowing that the majority of your positions in your organization are going to be positions that require a lot of upfront training, but acknowledging that perhaps there are some things that could be project-based. You would be foolish not to think that there might be something and to try to entertain volunteer, you know, being able to engage as volunteer. But at the end of the day, if you don't have anything, it's okay to say no.
I guess
And-
my thinking with that is like, you know, if there's an high school student who's got a passion for what we do, that's like the future of like our work.
Absolutely.
So
We should
want
probably
that.
all network each year, because I'm also the PTO president at the high school, and they have their whatever new project that they just started a couple years ago, which honestly, most of them hate doing. They don't like it. I mean, it's really, like, go into town and take pictures and all this stuff, but they give them a list, and it has all of our names on it, and every year, even Winmore, we get, 20 that says, hey, answer these questions. They don't care about Winmore. Our organization, they don't. And they just want to get their projects done because they can't graduate without it. So it might behoove us networking to maybe tag team and say, okay, hey, this year, the 4 of us will take it, and all the kids can reach out to us or something, and then provide that to the 2 schools. Because that, we're gonna keep getting that type of stuff each year, and unfortunately, it's how do you weed out, are these really serious, people that want to come here and learn about our organization, or is it just because they need to ask? So.
Well, and there's a place for them.
You know,
There's a place for them, and you don't want to,
and it
you
is.
certainly don't want to judge, right? If somebody has a day to give, and let me tell you something, volunteering has definitely become more episodic. There, and part of it has to do, when we talk about trends, we talk about just the culture of volunteering, part of it is immediate gratification. There is they want to see the outcome. And best practice in volunteering anyway, I don't care if it's a day project or a 6-month project, best practice is to always advise your volunteers of outcomes. Because everybody, for the most part, everybody is interested in an outcome, but this generation, they're really interested in an outcome. And they want to know really quick what they're doing and how they're impacting. So it's when you tell your story, when you're marketing your what you do, you need to make that connection. Even if they're sharpening a pencil, you need to connect that sharpening of the pencil to the outcome of your mission. They want to connect that to your mission because this generation, it's important to them. And that's why they're choosing you. And so, again, as you said earlier, I appreciate that you recognize that they are connected to your mission and you want to tap into that. So you are very wise to try to come up with other ways to engage them. But everybody should look at their business that way. Everybody should say, I have a spot here for the more committed, long-term volunteer. I have a spot here for the day volunteer. I have a spot here. Half the time, the problem is you're not ready for those volunteers. For that one volunteer who wants to give you a day. Do you know that you would think some of these businesses out there that, you know, there's a lot of philanthropy now in business. Businesses are, I mean, they're allowing volunteer hours for their employees to go out. You know, many of you are not ready for these people to come in for a day. And sadly, you know, the first year we did Let's Volunteer Day. Are any of you familiar with Let's Volunteer Days through the Path Volunteer Hub? Some of you have engaged with Path Let's Volunteer Days. It's actually the whole month of April, which is National Global Volunteer Month. Path Foundation funds organizations $1,000 to do a project. And I can tell you the reason the $1,000 comes from the fact that the first year we didn't. And what I quickly learned was not only are organizations not ready, and that is not to your detriment. I'm not saying that to be disparaging in any way. I'm saying that it's a capacity thing. And many organizations aren't really ready to just have a group of people come in for a day. And you know, these groups, I assure you, I promise you, most of them are saying, oh, we have got a thing for you. We have a whole group of people and we want to come and help your organization. And they think that that is just the best thing since sliced bread. And what they don't realize, and it's innocent, you know, ignorance is bliss. They don't understand that their, you know, big group of people coming into your organization is a lot of work for you. And not only is it a lot of work, but it costs money because, yeah, maybe you want to paint a fence, but you don't have the paint, and you don't have the brushes, and you don't have all the supplies you need. So here you have a group of people just chomping at the bit wanting to help, and you can't use them. And because they don't understand, a lot of times they're insulted that you told them no. And now it's a community engagement thing. It's an outreach thing. It's an outreach problem because now, you know, you're getting the reputation, well, we tried to help them, but they wouldn't let us. So do you see how all of this preparation is important? And I know that in your daily core, I mean, this is in all of your core business and what you do on a day-to-day basis. This is not top of the list. This is not what you're thinking about every day. And so, and it is often what goes to the bottom of the list. And until the day comes when you realize you had to turn down volunteer help because you weren't ready. So when I say an assessment, this is what I'm talking about, yes.
So during the pandemic, I worked with AmeriCorps and CCC, and I was the person going to the organization saying, hey, we've got a group of 10 people that would like to volunteer with you. And we did the most obscure projects, and one of them was working with the Refugee Resource Center, and all we did was hung up Christmas lights and cutouts, like little snowflakes, and we hung them up, you know. We didn't interact with any clients, we didn't need any background checks or any pre-training. They're like, here's a box of lights, go hang them up in the hallway, and we kind of just went for it. And so with the Red Cross, we also have disaster kits where we give them to groups, and they can either rally to get all the stuff donated to us, or they can assemble the kits as well. And that doesn't require any training, probably a quick talk through, but those are the small projects that people are more than happy to kind of go through. And we always advise our supervisors throughout the day, if you find a project that you want to do, make a list and then put it in a jar or something. When they come up, you can just look at that list and be like, okay, these are the projects we've accumulated over the year that we'd like to do, whether it's holiday cards or thank you notes to the vets or whatever it is. Those are things we can give to those event-based volunteers. But.
Excellent, excellent, that's wonderful. See, I told you you'll learn more from this room than you will from me. Wouldn't it be great if your organization, and I know sometimes that sounds like a big word, and I recognize sometimes your organization is one person, but you have a board, you have people, you have stakeholders, you have people that work with you. Wouldn't it be great if your brain was always thinking that way? And wouldn't it be great if one staff meeting you decided, or a part of your strategic plan was to say, we need to have day projects always in the hopper. We need to always have something ready. So let's have a file. And all of you, all you board members, or say you do have a staff, say you are very operational. Wouldn't it be great if everybody thought that way and they started always thinking about what, instead of just saying, oh, we'll never do that, we'll never have the time to do that, that's not important. Well, but maybe a volunteer could do it, and you could focus on what's important, and then get done. So wouldn't it be great if everyone thought that way, and you had a file, or a jar, or something that was always ready, so that when you got that call, because remember, as you start collaborating, when you start talking about high school students, you know, part of the issue is never the 20 shall meet. I can tell you that plenty of high school students don't know what to do, they don't know where to go, and even though since 2016, we've had a volunteer database platform for our community to use to find volunteer opportunities, it still isn't maximized. It still isn't being used as much as it could. Now, when you talk about collaboration, I can help you because I can have a page on my site that says day job, project-based opportunities. So that when our community members want to look for day projects, they can go on the letsvolunteer.org site and find them in an easy place. And you all know that I do that, so now when you create projects, you put it on my site and you put it on that page, you attach it to that page. So you see how if we all work together, not only are we helping you, but we're helping the community engage, because part of the problem is, there's another half to this problem, and that is that the community can't find you, or they don't think you have anything for them to do, or they think that because you work with children and they don't want to work with children, they can't volunteer for you. When in reality, if they like your cause, there's things for them to do that may not be direct service related. I used to tell the first group I met with when I first came in, I remember, we'll never forget, was Boys and Girls Club. And I remember, they were limiting themselves to just volunteers who were going to work directly with children. And I said, well, but then in our conversation, they were telling me about how the director was mowing the lawn and weeding the gardens because she didn't have time to do other things. And I said, well, why don't you get somebody to mow the lawns and weed the gardens? And she's like, well, I know, but I mean, that's not why people want to volunteer for Boys and Girls Club. Yes, it is. If somebody wants to help the Boys and Girls Club, and you tell your story, and they know that by mowing the lawn and picking the weeds, that you can do a better job at serving the boys and the girls club, they want to come help you. So do you see how you can approach any opportunity, but attach it to your mission? Attach it to your mission. You will not be able to get away with it without attaching it to your mission in today's day, I can tell you. So opportunities and outreach, we go over trends in volunteerism and how they might inform opportunities and outreach. And we've just been talking about that for the last 20 minutes, trends, episodic. You, as an organization, you probably, if you want to be fully engaged with volunteers, you are going to have to come up with project-based volunteers. I'm not saying that you have to give up on committed long-term volunteers, but if you want to be fully engaged, you've got to find project-based volunteers, because there's a lot of that out there. And if you don't have that, you're turning away a lot of our community that wants to help. Develop position descriptions with a volunteer experience lens. Again, we go back to what it feels like for the volunteer. Explore targeted recruitment concepts and consider potential audiences, and develop an outreach strategy. We just have been talking about all of that. So, do you know that you may even take the same position but market it differently to attract different people? And it's really important to know who your audience is. Let me ask you something. How many of you use Facebook and Instagram and all sorts of online media? Do you all tailor your messages differently depending on who your audience is? And if so, give me an example of that.
So we do oyster shell recycling downriver in our title office, and I was talking with our restoration student today about it, and so we have two angles. examples kind of for that. One being the people who love restoring the river, who love oysters, and the other being, we have big oyster shell bags that need to be moved, and the other being taking it as like, this is your workout for the day. Come move oyster bags with us. And like promoting to the younger, like, or the gym community, and that could be the flyer that goes up in the YMCA. But then we have the environmentalists that were like, this is oysters, this is what they do. And we also have the people who just like eating oysters and want them to continue growing, is our third audience, where volunteer just in the oyster restoration realm.
Excellent. Perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Remind me your name again? Sheila? Okay. Let's take about 2 minutes here. Let's try to help Sheila. So Sheila has a problem with trying to reach, right? You've got a judgment issue. You've got, you know there's people out there that you're not going to reach. So you need to find the people you are. Any ideas on how she can market herself to get the right fit and attract the right people? In a way that's
Team up with the gentleman over there that wants to start like the disability place, because like I have so many older friends that are veterans that have like, PTSD and other stuff, and they need, medical marijuana to be able to help them. I mean, my good friend, her father has Parkinson's, that's the only thing that he can take that will stop him from shaking. So team up with something, another facility.
Yep.
That partnership.
Collaboration and partnership. What?
One reason I wanna go nonprofit is because of the stigma. Because it's gonna be easier for me to do what you're teaching than it is to try to fit in downtown Culpeper.
Well, and not only that, but as a nonprofit,
And I'm just not.
you're making a statement anyway as a nonprofit,
Right.
what your mission is, right?
Right.
You're looking to help. Yeah, so I agree. I was thinking you were for some reason. You're not
I'm
nonprofit yet?
I'm not,
Okay.
I'm working with another one.
You're working-
involved with another one in Richmond.
Yeah.
This one is mine.
Well, if there's one thing I want to say to all of you that I want you to really remember next time you question anything about what you do. Next time you say to yourself, we can't ask volunteers to do that. I want you to remember, believe in what you do and believe that every single thing that supports your business supports your mission and what you do. Don't ever degrade or, make less of any aspect of your business. Because if you connect it to your mission, it all matters. I always use the example, years ago, I used to volunteer at my kid's school. And I was working like 30 hours a week, but I always had Fridays off. And I would volunteer in the school on Fridays. So it was my only day off, really. And I had a son and a daughter, and I was in the son's room in the morning and the daughter in the afternoon. So it was a full day. Well, at that stage in my life, I had young kids, and I was tired, and I was working. And so when I volunteered, I liked doing the mailboxes. I remember one time when I was done, I said, is there anything else you want me to do? And she said, well, there is something else, but I really don't, I feel terrible asking you. And I said, well, what is it? She said, well, it was 3rd grade. And she said, well, if you could sharpen the pencils. And I said, oh, I'd love to sharpen the pencils. Don't ask me to read with them today, but I will sharpen every pencil in this school. Because for that stage of my life, sharpening pencils, and the thing is, I was volunteer director at the time too, so of course I had a very valuable perspective. But I knew that was helping her. I knew that she was going to do it if I didn't do it. And I knew she had better things to do. And even when I had junior volunteers at the hospital, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, they'd come in and they'd say, they want it to be like, ER and Grey's Anatomy, and they want to go in on a heart surgery, and they want all the excitement. And I used to say to them, you've got to remember, you're here, and by doing what you're doing, our clinicians are able to focus on the patients. And that is what we're here for. And so it may not always be the most exciting thing. But if someone is buying in that much to your mission and to your cause, and you tell the right story, and you make that connection, they'll do it. They'll do it. And don't ever, because if you make up the mind that it's beneath them, you will start to convey that to them. Don't feel that way. Value every aspect of your business, and if you value it, they will too. And if you value the investment you're putting into them to come and do what it is you need them to do, regardless of how much time it takes, they will too. And if you say, I can't have you doing that because in this particular position, this is the kind of commitment level we need, we have other areas that we can extend to you that match your commitment level, or better yet, our organization really can't work with individuals that have the kind of commitment level that you have. However, there's a great online resource called letsvolunteer.org, or better yet, my friend over here has an organization, or in my community I know of, we have a council that I can refer you to other organizations that can match what you're doing. So this is how it helps, not only with the community outreach and the impression you're making on your volunteers so they don't walk away saying, do you believe I tried to help you? And they said no. You tell them why, and you stand by the commitment and your mission and the investments that you're making, and don't ever feel bad to turn a volunteer down if that's why you're doing it. Okay? So intake and onboarding, this is when they walk through the door. So if you have, if you're looking to recruit volunteers, or you're already starting to recruit volunteers, this is a great session because it talks about the actual interview process, screening process, how you vet. Vetting should be different too. You don't want to have the same vetting process for every single volunteer that walks through your door. If a volunteer is going to come for the day, your vetting process is going to be much more casual. If they're going to be an extended volunteer that's going to go through 40 hours of training, you're going to do a lot of vetting, right? The difference between the importance of orientation and training, you know, and how will you orient? You know, I used to have organizations like CASA and SAFE and hospice organizations that bring people in, and they, you know, have to do these really big orientations. And I would say, well, don't do one every time you bring them in. Do one every quarter. Do one every month. And that way, you know, we bring the people in. At the hospital, we did orientation twice a month, I guess. And I would just line them up. You know, my volunteers, they'd come in, I'd say, okay, our next orientation's here. And we, you know, that way our resources, we're not expending a lot of resources to bring people in. Design an effective volunteer orientation and assess training needs. So looking at the type of positions that you have, and I can help you with that. You know, I'm really good at kind of sitting down with you and walking through, okay, what is it you do? Let's figure out what your needs are, and let's figure out what level of training you need and what sort of investments you need to make in bringing those volunteers in. So 5 is supervision and support, where we talk about, you know, the benefit of supporting. So once they're with you, if you already have a cadre of volunteers and you want to really sharpen how you manage them, how you supervise them, how you support them, this is a really good module for that. How many of you have already very large groups of volunteers that you're managing? Okay. Do you have formal orientation? By your show of hands, okay? And do you have ongoing training? Or do you just have initial training? Ongoing training, okay? You know, you also may want to consider, sometimes there's an online option. You know, if you can't do it in person, you know, but there's, again, you want to remove barriers. Removing barriers, if you will notice in this series, in every single session, no matter what we're talking about, we always end with removing barriers, because that is important in any decision you make with engaging volunteers.
And for us, it was a game changer to go to videotaping some of the training and letting people do it at home off the YouTube channel. That has eased that perception of how many hours it takes to get ready. Because they can sit at home and do it themselves.
Listen, we know at the Resource Center, we know that everything we try to do for you is to take work off your shoulders. That is the motivation, or to make things easier. That is the motivation behind just about everything that we do. So we recognize that you need capacity and you need the ability to do what you do so that you don't burn out. And then we also work on helping to make sure that your volunteers don't either. So evaluation is the last one, and evaluation really has a lot to do with, you know, it's funny because I know the last group I had, we talked about evaluation. It was like, oh my gosh, evaluation. I mean, you know, it seems so formal. So, you know, so many of you have not gotten to that point. But it is important. And evaluation, don't forget, is also a part of like that assessment tool. So evaluation can be anything. Evaluation can be, you know, I know all of you are familiar with evaluating the programs and the impact that your programs make in the community, right? I mean, all of you do that. How many of you do a community report? How many of you, I mean, whether it's published, or how many of you have to do something like that for your board? Right. So evaluation, it's not a concept that you're not familiar with. You are familiar with it. It's something you have to apply to your volunteer program as well. And it can be, and it's evaluation in how the people that they're directly serving are receiving the volunteers. Now we get back to that original assessment, I think Shelley, you said, when you thought about evaluation or assessments, that's when you start wanting to talk about how is the experience. You know, I was working with, we did some real in-depth work with Heroes Bridge one time, and they have a real good program, you know, a battle buddy program. They send volunteers out to go meet with, you know, with veterans in their homes and such. And ironically, there were cases where the volunteer and the person they were supporting weren't a good match. You know, like they would end up telling someone else that, you know, you don't have to send it back. You know, or the volunteer would start getting all of a sudden sick and couldn't get out. And at the end of the day, it was a good fit. But they didn't have processes in place to identify that. So consequently, this bad match kind of lived on much longer than it should have. But as a result of working with them, they established a process to identify that, an evaluation process. And so talking about when evaluation processes are necessary, and when to do them, and how to do them, and who should do them, and how they should be administered. Okay. The one last thing I wanted to mention, which is the one thing I couldn't print out. So this is the cycle of, and just tell me if you identify with this at all. So we're talking about kind of the cycle of, again, I don't want to be disparaging, but like a poorly managed program. So the nonprofit recognizes it needs assistance to achieve its mission. Oh, I guess I can read it. The agency assesses its financial resources and finds them deficient. And I guess what I would ask you to do, if you'll indulge me, is if any of this has happened to you, any elements of it, even just parts of it, just raise your hand, and I'd just be curious to see how many hands get raised in the room. So the agency assesses its financial resources and finds them deficient. The leadership, the board, the executive director, assumes volunteers is free labor and requires little financial strategic investment. So because we don't have much money, we're gonna bring in volunteers because we don't have enough money to hire people. The organization issues a call and finds volunteers who may or may not be qualified. Because remember, sometimes there's warm body recruitment, and we do discuss the difference between warm body recruitment and strategic recruitment, and there's a place for both. A staff person may oversee the volunteer effort, but expectations, accountability, and communication remain unclear. So when the effort achieves little, volunteers receive blame and are approached with skepticism, if at all, and the next time their service is required, they're not utilized, or the program fizzles. And I see a lot of that happening. I've seen it happen where, you know, sometimes volunteers even start to become negative because they feel like it's not solving our problems and it's, you know, they're not doing it right. And so there's a big gap between, you know, that and not getting there and having really good outcomes.
Can I just throw in too, just in
Sure.
favor of the volunteer appreciation, that if you don't communicate that you appreciate that the efforts they're putting forth, the time that they're putting forth, that they can also get disenfranchised.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so many just fade away because there isn't that opportunity for mutual feedback and mutual exchange of information. And so I had asked that question at one time of a group that had come in to do volunteer management, and you will see, you know, this is, you know, indicate the degree of concern or challenge for all these different elements. And by far the highest one, this one being highly challenged, was funding, budget, and staff constraints for volunteer programs. Okay? So what I want to tell you is that today, I want you to know we are here to support you. We are here to help you. And I want you all to know about the types of services that we can help you with. So wherever you said you were in your volunteer journey, in your program, you don't even have to come, and I'll speak for myself, but I know I can speak for Melissa too. You don't even have to come to us. We'll come to you. I will come to your organization. I will come to your house. And I will help, because I know that many of you, that's your office, is your house. And I will help you step by step through this process. Wherever you are, I will come to you. We have something we can offer you also, right here, that's called the Diagnostic Assessment and Debrief Tool. This is a pretty formal process that will, I'll have you guys pass these around to everyone, that will allow you to assess your current program, where it is right now, and come up with actionable, actionable strategies to move forward systematically to get to where you need to get in your program. And it's something Melissa and I do together. You pick people out in your organization to do this assessment. It's a formalized assessment tool. You fill out the assessment, the results come back, and then Melissa and I do a debrief with you, your organization, your board, or whoever you need, to come up with a strategic plan for your volunteer engagement. We also have, you can sign up for any of the volunteer training or all. If you let us know you want to do that, we'll sign it today. Please get on letsvolunteer.org, because that's going to give you access to the community. It's also going to give you an opportunity for outreach, to let people know you exist, okay? And your needs. But even if you have no needs right now, put your organization out there so those 7,000 people can see you exist, all right? Also, funding. There are organizations that have worked with us that have gotten funding to hire a volunteer coordinator. So that is possible. But you're gonna need data, and you're gonna need evaluations and assessments usually to do that. You're also gonna need to track your volunteer engagement and hours, and that's how I can help you with the platform. So data is important. If you have volunteer issues, we can help you with that too. And I would encourage you to start thinking now about next April. Remember we said have things in the hopper? We'll give you $1,000. So we can take care of part of that funding piece. But have a project ready to go so that in April, or actually in February, when we start calling out for projects, you can be one of the organizations that gets on our site and has a project. And maybe you start meeting new volunteers in the community, because that's how you attract people. So I always say it's a project, but it's also an open house. So these are hopefully resources, even though, again, you're not gonna walk out of here with all your answers. But the answers and the support is there for you. It's free, and it should be easy to get. We will make it as easy as possible. So don't let the distance stop you, because we really want to tap into this Culpeper area. Any questions at all? Or do you want to move it over? Well, I appreciate all of you coming and sharing, sharing about yourselves, and I just am glad to see that everybody here, it makes sense, it was on volunteer management, but I love that everybody here has specific needs. And I hope if they weren't met today, that you will reach out to us.